Hello students, welcome to our online tutorial class. So I have decided today that I will be starting the chapter that is ecosystem structure and function. We all know this chapter is actually belonging from the last unit, but we are starting with this chapter because of this is quite easier chapter, as well as from this portion or that from this specific chapter so many questions are also coming in the board exam. If you see the previous year question papers, you will see that so many questions have come even from this chapter. So we are starting with this chapter. First of all, when we will be starting with this chapter, we have to know what is ecosystem. Ecosystem means this is such kind of system which is commonly found in environment, open environment, and where various kinds of living as well as non-living substances are included with it, and they are always interacting with each other. So this specific type of physical system where various kind of living and non-living substances interacting with each other, that kind of system is commonly known as ecosystem. If you see the word ecosystem, the eco word has come from ecological area, okay, because ecological area means those specific areas which are present throughout the entire world in a distributed manner. So those specific area which are containing various kinds of living and non-living objects. So those are ecological areas, and when they are actually interacting with each other, they are dependent on each other, then it is actually providing us a specific system, or it is showing us a system like structure. So ecosystem is the basic thing what we have to know, or we have already known about this. Second thing is that types of ecosystem. So throughout the world, if you study the types of ecosystem, you will see there are two types of ecosystem mainly present. The ecosystem which is naturally found, which is already existing in the nature, there is no human interference needed for creating that ecosystem or for maintaining that ecosystem. So that is the natural ecosystem. Clear? And another type of ecosystem is the man-made ecosystem. That means which specific ecosystem is commonly made by human being for their purpose, for their any work. Okay. So first of all, natural ecosystem that can be segregated into terrestrial and aquatic. Okay, terrestrial ecosystem means all we know, the forest ecosystem, mountain ecosystem, plateau, desert, grassland. These all ecosystems are coming within the terrestrial ecosystem. And the second ecosystem, aquatic ecosystem, means which ecosystems are commonly containing various water bodies such as pond, lake, stream, river, ocean, these all kinds of ecosystems. Clear? And the second type which is mentioned here, man-made ecosystem, this man-made ecosystem is actually the ecosystem which is commonly produced by man or maintained by the man. So within this man-made ecosystem, first ecosystem is written aquarium. We all know that in our houses, when we are keeping any aquarium, we are artificially keeping various aquatic animals like fishes. So obviously it is a man-made ecosystem. Agricultural field, various agricultural crops from where we are getting the crops which is used as our food. So that is also one kind of man-made ecosystem. And the third, garden. In our house, we are making the garden by several flowering plants. So those specific plants containing garden is also one kind of man-made ecosystem which has to be maintained. Okay. So now we are coming to the next point, that is components of ecosystem. That means by containing which specific substances our ecosystems are generally produced, or their ecosystems are generally they are surviving. So the components are actually of two types, biotic components and abiotic components. Biotic components means which specific components which have lives. Okay, so those specific components which have lives, they are commonly under this specific category, biotic components or living components. We all know that within biotic components in this ecosystem there are two types of organisms are mainly belonging. First one, producers. Producers means who are actually producing food for this entire ecosystem. Each and every organisms are dependent on them directly or indirectly. So those specific organisms are called as producers. Mainly green plants are considered as producers. Okay. Second, consumers. Consumer means those specific organisms who are fully dependent on producers, maybe directly or indirectly, but they are consuming the plant product as their food, and they are getting nourishment, they are growing. Okay, and their development is also happening. So consumers, we have segregated consumer into three different categories: primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer. Primary consumers are those specific organisms who are directly dependent on producers, specifically herbivores. Okay, herbivores are those specific organisms who are directly depending on producers. They are known as primary consumer. Secondary consumer is a type of consumer who are dependent on the primary consumers or indirectly dependent on the producer. Means carnivorous organisms. If you think, they are directly dependent on primary consumers because they are eating the flesh of primary consumers, and they are indirectly getting the nourishment of the producers through primary consumer. Okay. And the third one, tertiary consumer. Tertiary consumer is a type of consumer who are dependent on the secondary consumer directly but indirectly producers. Okay, why? Because they are again dependent on the secondary consumer and they are eating their flesh. Okay, and they are getting the nourishment. But actually, which nourishment they are getting? They are getting the nourishment from producer, and that is via primary and secondary. So primary consumer means our herbivorous organisms, secondary consumer means our carnivorous organisms, and tertiary consumer means they are present at the topmost region of each and every ecological system. Also they can called as top carnivore. Okay, so they are tertiary consumer. Next, there are several abiotic or non-living objects are also there who are present in this ecosystem. Who are they? Light, temperature, water, soil, pH and humidity. So these specific factors, please write down, because these factors are commonly known as abiotic factors because they don't have any life, but these factors are necessary for the biotic organisms for their survival. Okay, because without these factors, obviously biotic organisms can't survive. If you think producers means plants. If they will not get the light, if they will not get the water, if they will not get the carbon dioxide, okay, so that specific, these substances they will not get, automatically how they will survive. So automatically, that's why I am just including here air also. Okay, so if these factors they are not obtaining, how they will survive? It's not possible. So that's why abiotic factors are also very important factor for any kind of ecosystem. Okay, for maintaining, for retaining that ecosystem. Now we are coming to the next point, that is ecosystem function. Ecosystem function means, here we have already studied about the structure of ecosystem, components of ecosystem. Now we will be entering within ecosystem function. That means from a single ecosystem or from any kind of ecosystem, what kind of functions we can obtain or we can see. First, productivity. Obviously, the amount of food production by an ecosystem. So that will be considered as productivity. Second one, decomposition. That means when any animal or plant are getting died, their dead bodies are getting decomposed by some specific microorganisms. So obviously, decomposition is a part of this entire ecosystem. Energy flow. Energy flow is the main target of any ecosystem. In any of the ecosystem, whatever the organisms are present, they are only dependent on food. And why they are getting the food or why they are taking the food? Because of they need energy for their survival. So the flow of energy through an ecosystem is very much necessary. Otherwise, the organisms of each and every ecosystem, they can't survive. Okay. Nutrient cycling, the nutrients which are present in the soil, specifically various kinds of minerals. So those nutrients has to be get properly cycled in any specific ecosystem. If it will not get cycled properly, then that specific organisms present in the ecosystem, they can't survive. Okay. Ecological pyramid. Ecological pyramid means based on number, based on energy, based on biomass. There are several hypothetical pyramids we have prepared, and according to that pyramid-like structure, the organisms are segregated in different trophic levels, and they are obtaining the energy from the previous one and providing that energy to the next upper one. So that pyramid-like arrangement is there. That's why they are commonly known as ecological pyramid. About the pyramid-like structure, whatever the types of pyramid and all those things, we will be discussing into the next video. Okay. So out of these 5 functions, today in this video we will describe about only productivity and decomposition. About these 2 topics we will be covering today. So first, let's see what is productivity. Within the point productivity, first of all you have to know what is primary production, and then we will have to know about the productivity. Primary production means the amount of food or the quantity of the food generally produced by producer or the green plants. That is commonly known as primary production. And this primary production per unit time, suppose any specific plant is producing a huge mass of food. Okay, so that specific mass of food is produced in how much time? Okay, that has to be divided by the time. So total mass of food or volume of food divided by the time, then you will be getting the mass or the volume of the food produced in per unit time, and that will be known as, or that will be considered as, productivity of that specific plant, or it can be also called as primary productivity. Primary, why? Because the productivity by producer or by the plant or the initial organism of any ecosystem, that's why this productivity is commonly known as primary productivity. Now the point is, this primary productivity can be of two types, GPP and NPP. What is GPP? GPP means gross primary productivity. What is gross primary productivity? If you see the plants or the producers throughout the world or throughout any specific ecosystem, throughout the entire daytime, when they can perform the photosynthesis, how much volume of the food they have produced. Okay, so that specific volume of the food or that specific mass of the food is considered as GPP or gross primary productivity. So this G means gross, okay, primary productivity, and obviously gross primary productivity is also calculated per unit time. So total volume of the food produced by the plant per unit time, that will be gross primary productivity. So what will be the net primary productivity? Net primary productivity means how much total volume of the food has been produced by the plant or producer per unit time, if from there a limited amount of food or limited amount of energy is utilized by the plant for its physiological activity. After that, the remaining quantity of the food or the energy which is remaining in the plant body, and it will be forwarded to the next organism, that means primary consumer, which is present in the next trophic level. That specific quantity of the food which is remaining in the plant body per unit time, that is known as net primary productivity. So gross primary productivity means the total quantity of the food produced by the plant, and after that, from there, for several physiological activities, whatever the food has been utilized, remaining quantity of the food which will be transferred to the next trophic level organism, that means to the primary consumer, that is net primary productivity. Clear? So there is a relation in between this gross primary productivity and net primary productivity. Let's see the relation. So relation is this one. NPP, net primary productivity, which is going to the primary consumer, that is equals to gross primary productivity produced by the plants or producers minus R. R means here it is respiration. Clear? Respiration, why I have written here, or why it is given in the formula? Because respiration is a such kind of physiological activity where most of our food or maximum quantity of the food is getting oxidized, okay, or utilized. Remaining food, it will be getting transferred, or energy will be getting transferred to the next trophic level, according to NPP definition. So now the point is that primary productivity we have understood. What is secondary productivity? Because productivity is of two types. It is written primary and secondary. So what is secondary productivity? Secondary productivity is the type of productivity which is commonly produced by primary consumer. Why? Primary productivity is produced by producer. It is transferred to the primary consumer, NPP, that is net primary productivity. After that, primary consumer is again digesting that food. From that specific digested food product, how much total amount of energy that specific organism has obtained, from that specific amount of energy or total amount of energy, few they have utilized for their physiological activities like that respiration and other physiological activities. Remaining energy, it will be get transferred to the next specific trophic level, that means next to the secondary consumer. So that specific productivity which is produced by any specific primary consumer or herbivore per unit time, that will be called as secondary productivity. So we have to keep one thing in our mind, that primary productivity means it is related with the plant's productivity per unit time, and the secondary productivity means primary consumer's productivity per unit time. Okay, and always we have to keep it in our mind that from the primary productivity, from the primary consumer also, whatever the total productivity has been produced from there for respiration or for the physiological activities, few amount of energy it will be utilized and remaining will be transferred to the next trophic level, that is secondary consumer level. Okay, now the point is, or now the next Point is the factors controlling productivity. Whatever the factors are there controlling the productivity, the plant or animal, whatever the organism is producing the food or energy, that's not the matter. But the matter is based on which factor this productivity is depending. The factors are, first one, sunlight. If you consider the productivity by plant, specifically sunlight is necessary, because without sunlight plant can't perform photosynthesis. So obviously how much volume of the food will be produced by the plant, that will be based on the availability of the sunlight. Okay. Second, temperature. Temperature is the another factor, because when the sunlight is required for the plant for making their food, obviously temperature is also a factor, because if the temperature is very high or very low, that will not be suitable for the photosynthesis, and then it's not possible for the plant also to produce the food. So temperature is also mediocre temperature or intermediate temperature, which is available in our area, tropical area. That specific temperature is needed or required. Moisture content is also a factor. If any specific weather is highly dried, moisture content is not at all there. So automatically in those specific area, whatever the plants are present, their productivity rate will be less, because humidity is a factor by which plants are generally producing their food. Humidity or moisture means the moisture or humidity which is available in the soil. Keep it in your mind, because that will be actually making us understand about the water content present in the soil. So if the moisture will be less, dried soil, very dried soil, obviously in that specific soil it's not possible by any plant to perform photosynthesis and produce the food. Nutrient. What is nutrient? Nutrients means the minerals which are present in the soil. If the nutrient content is very low, if the soil is containing so much gravels, sand particles, so automatically in that specific soil plants will not grow properly. They can't perform their photosynthesis properly. So automatically productivity will be very less. Photosynthetic efficiency, obviously any specific plant is producing how much food, that will be always depending on that specific plant's photosynthetic efficiency. If the photosynthetic efficiency is more, obviously in case of huge plants which are huge in size, like the banyan tree or other plants, mango tree, so their photosynthetic efficiency is very high, so for that reason their productivity is also high. But if you think about any tulsi plant, okay, obviously plant size is less, photosynthetic efficiency most of the time it's less, so for that reason they will be producing less food also. Leaf surface, obviously in case of those plants like that banyan, like that other several plant, in case of which plant that leaf surface is more broader or more in area, obviously they will be absorbing sunlight more, they can obtain carbon dioxide from the atmosphere more, so automatically they can be produce the food also more. If the leaf surfaces are small, if the leaf sizes are small, automatically leaf surfaces are small in size. So how they will be producing high quantity of the food if the leaf number is huge enough? Okay, so if the leaf surface is less, obviously quantity of sunlight absorbed, that is less. Carbon dioxide absorbed from the atmosphere, that is less. So automatically what will happen? Their photosynthesis rate will be less and they will be producing less food. So these are the factors which are controlling the productivity. Next and the last topic for this video, that is decomposition. That is the second function of the ecosystem. What is decomposition? We all know that when any animal or plant body is getting died, or any animal or plant body when it is mixing with the soil, breaking down into small particles, that specific procedure is commonly known as decomposition. So decompositions are actually procedure where multiple various microorganisms are involved. Those are commonly known as decomposers, which are actually decomposing the animal or plant bodies after their death. So here two specific terminologies with decomposers also. Decomposer I have not written, I am including here. Decomposer already I have told. So now the two different points, detritus and detritivore, these points we have to discuss. Detritus means what? Detritus means specifically when any animal or plant dead body or organic matter is getting decomposed by decomposer into smaller particles, then it is known as detritus, or simpler particles, then it is known as detritus. Now those detritus is eaten by some specific organisms which are known as detritivore. So within the detritivore, the example always keep it in your mind, that is earthworm. Whatever the dead bodies, animal or plant dead bodies have been decomposed and mixed into the soil, that specific decomposed product is generally absorbed or consumed by these organisms known as detritivore. As an example, earthworm, and detritus is that decomposed product. Clear? Now we are coming to the mechanism of decomposition. There are actually 5 steps you can see. First one, that is fragmentation. Second one, catabolism, leaching, humidification and mineralization. These are the 5 steps which are required or which are happening during the decomposition process. First one, fragmentation. What is fragmentation? Suppose there is specific animal or plant dead body which is very large. Obviously, that large body has to be break down into smaller pieces first. Otherwise, it's not possible to start the decomposition process. So, first of all, fragmentation it is happening by several organisms like that scavengers. So, those scavengers are actually fragmenting that entire animal or plant dead body into multiple pieces. So, that is known as fragmentation. Now, after fragmentation, next step is catabolism. Catabolism means those small pieces of animal or plant dead body, further it will be starting breaking down into more smaller pieces, so that it will be very much easier to decompose again. So that specific small pieces will be again converting to more smaller pieces by the process of catabolism. Few microorganisms as well as some other birds like scavengers all are involved for this catabolic process. Next, leaching. This after catabolism, when the plant or animal dead bodies have come to very small minute pieces, those pieces are getting mixed within the soil and they are start entering through the pores present in the soil and they are start going to downward, okay, of the soil. So that specific process is commonly known as leaching. As well as keep it in your mind that the animal or plant dead body small particles or small pieces, when they are mixing with the soil, as well as they will start going towards the underground storage of water. They are mixing with that underground storage of the water. So that specific process, mixing with the underground storage of water as well as mixing with the soil particles, that is entirely known as leaching process. After leaching, the next process is coming, that is humidification. What is humidification? Now, when that specific small animal or plant dead bodies have mixed with the soil, have mixed with the underground water storage, then the microorganisms present in the soil, they are coming to further degrade those small animal or plant dead materials into more simpler microscopic structure. Okay, and when they will start those decomposition process, obviously that decomposition process is commonly known as humidification. But here you can see that just beside the humidification I have written the word humus. What is humus actually? When the animal or plant dead body small pieces are getting degraded or decomposed into more smaller microscopic substances, and those specific substances when mixed with the soil, the color of the soil is getting brownish black. So that specific structure or that specific soil containing smaller microscopic animal or plant dead bodies, that is known as humus. So if the definition it will be asked that what is the definition of the humus, you will be saying the black or brownish colored soil mass which is containing very minute animal or plant dead bodies. Specifically those dead body particles are microscopic and they have been produced by the action of various microorganisms. So that is known as humus. Humus is actually that black or brownish soil mass containing that microscopic animal or plant dead bodies parts which has been produced by decomposers or microorganism like bacteria. So that specific thing is that mass of the soil is known as humus and the process of humus formation is humidification. Now the next point is the mineralization. Mineralization means when the humus has been formed, that will be further degraded into the more simpler form, that means to those minerals from where this specific humus has been made. That means the humus will be broken down into carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, magnesium, sulfur, whatever the minerals were present in that animal or plant dead body part, those specific minerals will be extracted and it will be mixed into the soil. And that work or that specific step is also performed by some microorganisms, specifically by some bacteria. So that specific step is commonly known as mineralization. So I think all these 5 steps are very much clear to each and everyone. Next we are going into the factors controlling decomposition. That means whatever the factors are there present in the environment which are really controlling this decomposition process. First is temperature. Obviously, in which area the temperature is very high, extreme temperature like the desert region, obviously the decomposition reaction cannot happen properly in the soil because the bacterial population can't survive. So for that reason, temperature is obviously a factor. Temperature like this tropical area is very much proper for them. Second, humidity. Humidity is the another factor. Humidity, if it is not present, if the weather is very dry, then also it's not possible for the bacterial population to decompose the animal or plant dead body. If the soil is little bit wetty, then it's possible for the organisms, microorganisms to decompose it. pH. pH of the soil is also another important factor. If the pH of the soil is little bit acidic, then in that specific soil not a single bacteria can survive. So decomposition process is not also possible. So little bit alkalinity present in the soil or little bit basicity present in the soil, that is fruitful or that is required for any kind of decomposition process. Composition means the animal or plant dead body's composition. If the animal or plant is very huge, automatically their body is more complex. It is not so much easier to break it down. So based on the composition also of the food, composition of the animal or plant dead material, the decomposition is depending. If the composition is very complex, then it will be taking more time for decomposition. If the composition is simpler, then it will take less time. Aerobiosis. Aerobiosis is the next and the last factor, that is, if during the process of decomposition the flow of air is not present in the atmosphere, or even under the soil, if the air is not present in between the soil particles, it's not possible by the microorganisms to degrade the food particle, because when they will be decomposing that food particle, that means they are engulfing those complex food materials or complex animal and plant dead bodies and converting them into the simpler. So obviously for their digestion, the respiration process is very much necessary. So if they need to do respiration, they need oxygen, and if the oxygen availability in the soil is very less, then it's not possible to perform respiration by those microorganisms. So if the respiration it will not happen, how they will decompose the complex food product or complex animal or plant dead bodies into simpler form. So aerobiosis, or the presence of air in between soil particles, is also very much necessary or very much required element for the decomposition process. So temperature, humidity, pH of the soil, composition of the soil, animal or plant dead body, as well as aerobiosis, these all are very important factors for controlling the decomposition procedure. Clear? So this is the overall part which I have covered in this video. I will be starting from this energy flow, then nutrient cycling and ecological pyramid. That I will be teaching you into the next video. Okay? Thank you. I think you have understood all the portions. Okay. Thank you.